By the rivers of Babylon, yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying.
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Hillel. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation D.C.B, BINAH, located at 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. Giving thanks to the Creator of heaven and earth, Yehudah of all for all things and everything, the only true and living God, the Most High God. We give him glory for all that he does for us, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Also giving due respect to everyone on the platform, everyone that listens to us diligently on a weekly basis. We thank you for tuning into this show and for tuning into this to this moment of learning, praying that the Creator of heaven and earth will enlighten each and every one of us, even in the lessons that we get. Thanking the Creator also for the leadership of our congregation, my brother Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, praying that the Creator be with him, protect him, guide him, and keep him, be with his family, his household, and everyone. And to all of you online, we pray that the Most High God be with you all, praying that the Creator will continue to bless you and guide you and keep you. As we do on a weekly basis, we go over, we review the previous week's Haftarah portion. I know we're coming to a conclusion. We're almost at a completion of these Haftarot. So I don't know what Nasik is going to have in store for us following up, because we already went over the Sidra. This is the second year now we're doing the Haftarot. It's Haftarot. So now he's completing that. So I don't know what he has in store for the people starting out the after we reopen the Torah again, or restart the Torah from Genesis again. So I'll let him decide that. But in the meanwhile, I'll pass the mic over to him. How are you, Nasik?
I'd like to give honor to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform of more and our leadership, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, to the host Chief Uzziel, to the princes, chiefs, rabbinates, Maureen, Kohanim, brothers and sisters and visitors. I greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. Adonai Sabtadi Takufia Gita Deka, O Lord, down my lips. My mouth should declare that praise. First, I'd like to make a quick correction of something I did last time, because I think I recall that I mentioned about in the beginning of the month of Elul that the Sidra A would be actually the first Sidra, but actually the first Sidra during the month of Elul was the one I'm getting ready to do now, which was Shoftim. So I, pardon my blundering, and I always say any mistakes been my own, and I, no reflection from the platform that I'm on. Being I normally do these things on Sunday, which is the day after, and a Rosh Chodesh, we had a double Rosh Chodesh, those that, follow the normal Hebraic calendar, which was the end of the month of Menachem Av, and which was the last of the Menachem Av, and going into the Rosh Chodesh of Elul was that Sunday. So, and knowing that I normally do the talk and lectures on Sunday, just focus on, the month of Rosh Elul. But the Shoftim, which is the Sidra for the day in Haftarah, I'll be doing the Haftarah Shoftim, is actually always is the first Sidra of the month of Elul. And it's interesting because we're getting prepared for the month of judgment, which was be in the month Ethanim. We're getting ready for Yom Kippur, And during the month of Elul, we start our repentance process. And hence, like I said before, we normally read the 27th Psalm, usually twice a day. They read it in the morning prayers and in the evening prayers. Those that follow a particular traditional way of studying and reading. So, which is very interesting. So I hopefully I didn't throw too many people off, curveball. And if I'm making mistakes like that in the future, please leave it in the comments. And I don't claim to know everything. And so if and everybody's fallible, but I'm not using that as a crutch. But any mistakes be my own. So therefore, you help me out while I'm sharing. By if you have a issue or something I might have said, or it's just something to be in error, I would say thank God for you pointing it out for me, and sharing your thoughts and views. So with that, I would like to go on. Now, normally, the trilogy of the Sidra Re'eh, which was done prior to the Shoftim, and then Shoftim and Kitizeh, have more laws, and it's one of the longest trilogies out of any part of the Chumash, of far as laws being expounded within. And one of the things I like to speak on as we begin, before we open up in the book of Shoftim. Shoftim is a term we use for judges. They have other terms, used, like a dean for a judge, but normally a more archaic term for judges was, a shofet, which is a judge. And it's interesting that we have a sidra in the book of Deuteronomy called Shoftim. Shoftim, as some people might say Shoftim, but so we have a sidra called Shoftim in Deuteronomy, which start from the 16th chapter and 18th verse, and it goes all the way to the 21st chapter and the 9th verse. All that entails a lot of civil laws within our society. And we also happen to have a book in scriptures in Tanakh they call Shoftim, which is judges. Now you say, well, wow, we got a whole book dedicated to judges. And then we got this book, this Sidra, talking about judges. And you might ask, what is the big difference? We got a whole book dedicated to judges, and we read about it. And you read like guys like Samson, read about, Yehudah, you read about, a whole lot of other judges that's within Shamgar, different guys in the period of judges. But you also read about a woman who was a prophetess that stepped into a role, as such. But she was actually a prophetess by definition. So, but it don't tell you in the book of Judges, a lot of time, how did they legislate? So here, when we look in the book of Deuteronomy, it tells you about legislative practices, and it gives you a criteria of what a judge is supposed to be like. Now, we know the criteria that Moses was told by his father-in-law, way back during the Exodus. We know also in the early part of Deuteronomy what Moses hadn't to find, and settle for the criteria of those particular judges. But yet now we got an actual portion saying that this is not only was supposed to be for the 40 years that they track in the wilderness, but go into the land. Now, unlike the society that we in now in America, for most parts, where you say religion and state are separate. According to the Torah, religion and state is the same thing. There's no separation between religious and state. If you're going to have rules of government or rules of conduct, that's also have to be something more moral in a spiritual sense, and they have to have an area of civil living. So we don't, and that was foreign in scriptures to say our laws, our civil laws, as we define them today, was separate from our religious laws because they ran hand in hand. All right, so it's just an extension. All right, so now, as since we brought this out, I'd like to just look at a couple of things. But I'm just going to say what it covers. The whole sigil covers. So it covers about judges. It covers about who you're supposed to listen to. It starts with the Kohen, and then then it ends up with the judges. It talks about a king for Israel and his rules, and that we're going to appoint a king. It talks about staying away from magic, sorceries, false prophets, and we have in there, if a person kills someone by accident, they had to flee to Ere Makalat, which is a city of refuge. So we got that just covered in here. We got courts need to be needs to rules based on honest testimony from 2 witnesses. So in other words, you got to have at least 2 witnesses to establish certain matters. And this particular portion, it covers the times for war and who is exempt from war. And then as it ends up with a particular portion called Egal Arufa. Egal Arufa, which means a calf that's actually a heifer that's actually slain because you had a person that died, mysteriously killed. And it's not because a guy just died. It showed evidence that he actually was killed in this particular area. And it follows technically after we have issues about war. So there's a lot of comments on that. So I'm not going to cover, this would be really difficult to even do justice to it. I'm just giving you an overall view of what's all involved. So you have a lot of questions you could bring to your rabbis, your teachers, your princes, your chiefs, your Morim, or either Kohanim, in the various congregations about a lot of issues. And hopefully I can leave some things that would stimulate thought as we go forward. So in the opening verses, it says, judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, tribe by tribe, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither shalt thou take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. Justice shalt thou follow, that thou mayest live and inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So those couple of verses, those 3 verses there, bring out a lot. And it's all about the judges, concerning the judges. Now, one of the things is that it says judges and officers. And then Moses saying that, though I had these judges and officers for the 40 years time, you still, when you go into the land, you must also still maintain judges and officers. So now we have this thing where a lot of people that count the laws, statutes, and judgments in the Chumash, they say 613 laws, statutes, and judgment. They may have different numbers for certain laws when they do the count. But when they come into this area here of judges and officers, they count that as one law that you're supposed to make. They don't count it as the judges is one law and the officers it's another law. They count the judges and the officer as one law. When it says thou shalt not steal, we know that's complete one law. But so now when you say, well, why would that be one law when you got 2 different concepts and ideas and people that's doing something different, uniquely different? A judge, generally, all he do is legislate. He come up with rulings. That's all he do. The officers, their only job is not to come up with a ruling, not to write the citations, so to speak, but enforce what the judges have ruled to be law. So now, why would they be possibly counted as one law? And they would be counted as one law simply because the judges ruling in legislation is just theory. The law says does. Okay, that's it. That's theory. The officers, once the judges make the ruling of what they say, the officer got to say, okay, I got to make sure this is what they call manifested, put into practice, and make sure it's done. So now what the Torah is actually teaching us from the very, very beginning, is that theory without practice is not complete. That you can come up with all kind of ideas, but unless you put some effort and work to your ideas, it's not complete. So there, why everybody that might have a different count about what is the 613 laws only count this particular law as one with those two different people, the judges and officers, as one law, because you have to complete, what you think about, whether the mind summons, the flesh should manifest. So this is basically what's being brought out in here. Now, when you talk about the gates, and all your thy gates, every city don't have a gate. Every city is not walled in. Moses spoke about that in the beginning when he sent the 12 spies. See if they live in walled cities or they live out in the open. Shechem is not a walled city. A lot of places were not a walled city. Now, Sodom, you might say, might have had some walls to it, simply it was in battle and stuff like that. And also, you read about Lot, but that you read about the gate of Sodom. So everybody didn't have walled cities and have gates. So on another level, we have two eyes. That's on the spiritual level. When we talk about symbolic, we got 2 eyes, 2 ears, a mouth, a mouth, 2 holes in our nose, nostrils, whatever the case is, in our senses. Things, in 2 hands, things that we go out and that we got to guard. We learn, and also we got to guard and safeguard from. You got to watch what come in, monitor it, keep it under rule, and watch what goes out. So that's on the spiritual level. But on all your gates, that means right then and there that there shouldn't be an area in your life where law is not applied, where you don't have a certain type of standard. And then when you got a standard, the standard can't just be in theory. That standard must be adhered to and lived by. So that's all I want to say. So much in that area, when talking about respecting persons, as a judge, and we know one of the areas is that some people, might say, okay, I don't want to take this case because it's a meager case. Now let's talk about the judges that but they got it. But and the final thing it says, when you take cases, it says, Tzedek, Teodot, justice, pursue. Now, justice we understand, but why say pursue justice again and then pursue it? Because the ultimate goal is that you got to attain justice, and justice is sometimes, if it says twice, it emphasizes that's what you're looking for, but it's difficult to achieve. And that's one of the things, that's why I say, if you're pursuing something, it never said you actually captured it. Did you reach it? Did you reach full justice? Because even in your justice system, when you make a judgment, Some people gonna be okay with it, and some people won't be okay with it. So very few people is satisfied all around with justice. If you got litigants in, somebody gonna lose and somebody gonna win, or the case be dismissed, and then both people without what their aims and objectives are. So these things here, you got to justice. You know, in some societies, you might get locked up, and then your court date might be a month away, but yet you're confined, and your court date is so far away. So those are some of the areas that we got to consider. But when we talk about a tier level of court system, you know, we had traditionally the smallest court system traditionally, but you could check in the records, those that want to do that particular study. My job is not to just point out some things. You go do the research or ask your various teachers. Yeah, the smallest court system, what they call a bet dean, which is a court, will consist of 3 people, and it's taken and from this portion later on as we get to it. You know, I was thinking about if it be okay, so let me see. Let me just make sure I'm going to skip around just a little bit. All right. All right, the 8th verse of the 17th chapter. It says, and this is very important, the 8th verse. If there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment between blood and blood, between plead and plead, and between stroke and stroke, even matters of controversy within thy gates, then shalt thou arise and get thee up unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt come unto the priests, the Levites, and the judges that shall be in those days. And thou shalt inquire, and they shall declare unto thee the sentence of judgment, and thou shalt do according to the tenor of the sentence which they shall declare unto thee from that place which the Lord shall choose, and thou shalt observe to do according to all that they shall teach. And you notice it says that they should teach because evidently you wasn't sure. That's why you're there. According to the law which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee, thou shalt do. Thou shalt not turn aside from the sentence which they shall declare unto thee to the right hand, nor to the left. And the man that doeth presumptuously and not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy God, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and thou shalt exterminate the evil from Israel, and all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. What is so important here is that it centers on 3 categories. Now we know a priest is automatically a Levite, but it says the priest, and it said the Levite, and the judges should be in that day, and then Leon just says the priest and the Levite, the priest and the judge. Now, one of the things that I like to just share, and it says in the place of the Lord shall choose. That means that you got this matters, certain laws, when we talk about thou shalt not add or diminish, or you got certain issues that come up, and it be dire issues. Some issues is so serious with blood and blood, plead and plead, controversy, something that is not already expounded on in Torah, and you need an answer. And one of the things I like to speak on just quickly in reference to that is that, and it said go to the place. That means that when it gets that serious, the final decision that is most weighty, the most final decision that's most weighty, and this on the highest level, is when the priests get involved, you know, at the Temple Mount. So now they had a tier system of, like I said earlier, of courts. You had a court of 3, a court of 23, and a court of 71. You know, that was the Sanhedrin. So now the court of, and it started the Sanhedrin after it came from Babylon, basically was 120. And then some kind of way to trickle it down. I'm not sure on, you know, how it dropped from 120 clearly. So those might be interesting, and we'll look for that, because that's not my, you know, my goal right here, right now. But, and they went to 71. But the 70 was counted from the Moses. They used the 70 from the time of Moses, when the Spirit went on them 70 elders, and it was for being judges. But, you know, technically Moses' Spirit went on 72. But, you know, but the ones that actually was with Moses was the ones that became the so-called real official authority. Eldad and Medad didn't have that authority other than they prophesied, you know, themselves. But the ones that was with Moses, those was actually the ones of authority and judges, you know, official judges. And when they died, they would be replaced. So they have an unbroken chain. So sometimes you might hear people say rabbinic, or you might say the sages. I like to say the sages because that gives you a chain back from Moshe time, as opposed to when they started using terms like rabbis and stuff like that. When we look at the area that a lower court, if they can't decide a decision, then they take it to the next level, you know. And then if the court with 23 can decide, they take it to the Sanhedrin. That's what any matter. Now the lower courts mostly handle, you know, things like property, finances. According to tradition, you know, from the research, you know, that I did, they handle the court of 3, you know, little debt disputes and stuff like that, when it's dealing with money and fines and properties and stuff like that, and valuations. The next level court, the 23, will be where you will have, you know, an area, you know, I mean, much more of a capital case, you know, where a capital punishment might be administered by the 23. The last one, and then y'all can look at this up, you know, yourselves as well, and then talk it over with your various teachers. The last one with the 71 elders, they had to meet at the Beit Hamikdash, which was later, and they wind up at that particular spot in time. They decide whether we're going to go to war, whether we're not going to war, whether the king going to war or not, or what's good for the nation overall if it's in a time of a crisis. So that's to be the 70 elders. So they had the ultimate authority, but they had their authority existed only, you know, was predicated more not only in their numbers, but also in a location, in the place. So where their authority even superseded that, technically, of the king. So now what happens is we have records that during all the way up to the first century, we had a court system, first century common era, I should say. We had a court system like that in place. And I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of that. And around the 4th century of the Common Era, they stopped. Let me see, 4th. Let me make sure. Yeah, the 4th century, they stopped corporal punishment. You know, and around the 30th century, the Common Era, they stopped doing capital punishments, considering, you know, they said it was too much bloodshed, whatever the case is. That's historical, you know, that the Sanhedrin didn't deal with capital punishment. What brings about a lot of other issues, you know, around the 30th century. It's a lot of murky stuff going on at that time, you know, people that's basically might read New Testament stuff, you know, as well. So there's a lot of murky stuff going on that would bring out and stimulate a lot of conversation. But it was the Romans that basically had say, well, we need to break up the Sanhedrin because, you know, we need to stop them for, you know, whatever reason they had in reference to, you know, the nation of Israel. and destroyed our system, our justice system, because Rome was the authority, and we was, they occupied us. So if you got your own court system, you're saying you're going independent of the authority. So they try to, break that down, so to speak. And the problem with that is that most of the times we ourselves was actually, and just in the 30th century, when they stopped capital punishment, the temple still existed for another 40 years before it was destroyed by the Romans, by the way. So I'm giving you a rough timeline. So when we look at that at that particular point, that we find with the judges that in their moral status, that's what really make us who we are, and it's tied up into our spiritual, religious side, for lack of a better word. The Romans, when they tried to destroy everything, they stopped what they call rabbinicus smirka. You know what I mean? They didn't want people to start to. They try to break that chain of who has authority, because technically a rabbi really had the authority to interpret law. That was his job after the Babylonian captivity. It wasn't just always just a priest. And one of the things that they say, while the priests, the Kohen, the Levites, and the judges that shall be in those days, I just want to focus on that just for a moment, is that everybody else, all the 12 tribes, had land, property. So when we think, I got a farm, how much studying I'm going to do in law, in civil law? I got crops to work with. I got cattle to work with. The Levites themselves, they had no land inheritance. So all they basically had to do was safeguard the Mishkan, and later on when they got the temple. So when they safeguard the temple, when the temple was built, there was only one spot they had to, be at for the Sanhedrin. But other than that, when they considered they stood before God in the Mishkan, like I said before in my last talk, that wherever the Mishkan rested, that was holy spot, that was holy ground, that was the place. So the Kohanim, since they didn't have farms that they had to really work, they had no land inheritance that really was given to them, even though they had cities, they was more read up on ritual and civil laws. That's what they did. We, as a nation, got a chance to study law and Torah during the Shemitah year, the seventh year. Every seventh year, everybody will hear some things that's in the law. How much you gonna retain in 1 year? All of us that went to school, most of us from the age of 5 till we graduate 12 years later, when we go from kindergarten, and going all the way up, whatever the case is, we don't remember everything. It takes us that long just to study. And usually when we have a summer break, we forget a lot of stuff that we learned just the previous year. A Levite, on the other hand, and a priest, on the other hand, is constantly studying Torah. So now, something in the Sanhedrin, it might have been historically, and I'm just sharing this for those that might follow, a traditional view, that historically you had more priests and Levites as members of the Sanhedrin, of the court system, than in there than mostly anybody else, a lot of other people in. But the head of the court system, the head of the Sanhedrin, the one they called the Nasik, you only read historically that you might have had 5 that claimed to be, priests. Everybody else was pretty much, the common guy. But you had to be dedicated enough to study. So now, when it comes to controversy, well, I'm just going to share some things when the Sanhedrin was actually, disbanded, and it was disbanded because of 2 major schools. When the Romans, though they was trying to break up the Sanhedrin, they didn't have no problem with different schools, academies, or yeshivot, as they say today, of study. And they figured that if they had these different schools of study, that, okay, I'm teaching law this way, you're teaching law that way. Most of y'all that's looking at this program know how Israelites are in different camps and different congregations. The rules is over here. The bylaws is over here. They might do it this way. We might do it that way. This is the rules right here. If you don't like the rules, you go over there. Well, it's not really, and that's what happened pretty much, you know. But once a ruling is made where you at, you bounded by that rule. Now you might say, I'm not going to stay there no longer. I just can't. I'm bounded by the rule within the bars of jurisdiction might extend. But why, you know? But when that ruling is made, no other person could change that ruling. They might not say, well, we don't hold to that particular ruling. So you had the two major schools at first, Hillel and Shamai. And I'm just going to share this and then move on a little bit in the schedule because I see us spend a little time on this. The two major schools of Hillel and Shamai that when they had a Torah, they had Torah academies, which means you study laws and statutes and rituals and everything else dealing with our religious laws and also our civil laws. So the school of Hillel had open enrollment. The school of Shamai, they had selective enrollment. So naturally, the school of Hillel, when you got open enrollment, everybody that want to learn Torah comes there, flocks there. The school of Shamai, only if you look like you had qualities of an astute individual, like you had a lot of a gift for knowledge and everything like that, and you exhibit that you had that criteria, then you would be admitted to study in the school of Shamai. So now, this brings about a case. All right. You normally would follow the majority, except when it's come to do evil, most cases, you know, and the majority be ruling. And so now, that's why they always had the odd numbers in the 20, the 3, the 23, and the 71. But what happened is that since the school of Shamai said we ain't going, you know, they had 3 different problems when it comes down to dealing with law, is that they would say, okay, we're more scholarly over here than them guys over there. There might be more of them, but if we're going to talk about the issue of Torah, we ain't gotta follow them. You know, we're gonna start doing our own thing, and pretty much the school of Hillel start doing their own thing because the school of Shammai pretty much didn't respect the school of Hillel, and so they say, well, you're not on my level. You're not, you're really not scholastically, you know, on the same level I am. So, and the school of Shammai would say, I only got to follow the majority if the majority is of the same level. Hence, you got, let me just throw it up into a common thing. You know what I mean? You got Harvard or Yale as opposed to a city college or online study college. So that's what they look at with the school of Shammai as opposed to the school of Hillel. But then, you know, later on, the tradition is now, I'm not going to go into the myth when they come out for those that study that, is that they follow the school of Hillel. So that's some of the points. I hope I didn't throw people off too much about that, but I'm just showing you how our system worked and how it continued to work for quite some time. But we didn't have a Sanhedrin been banned and disbanded for about 2,000 years now, close to 2,000, when it was actually disbanded completely. All right, so now you got to go to whatever people you consider your authority in whatever group you are in, and hopefully, you know, they are saintly enough, compassionate enough to deal with these laws. All right, the next thing I'm just going to bring out right quick before I go into the Haftarah is about the election of a king and his duties. And I'm just dealing with people that's mostly in authority, so to speak. And one of the things I like to bring about the authority, and I have to skip over a lot of other stuff, but the authority of a king. When you look at the authority of the king, it says, you know, and then I'm going to read from the 17th chapter, 14th verse. When I come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me like all the nations that are round about me. All right. So most people focus on the word, som tasim, which is the word is being repetitious, the verb is being repetitious, surely a place or set when, a king over you. Now, one of the things I like to bring out before I go any further is that some people would just rather have, a council, no central head. When they talk about setting a king, the creator, to the prophet Moses, allowed us to have a central spot. We had a central place of worship. So we had a central spot for laws to be legislated and adjudicated at that particular point in place. But one of the things is that when we look at central authority, see, most people try to, like I have the saying, you can share power, but you never could share authority. Some people would say, well, we don't want no central one person running this and no one person dealing with that. But the idea is having a central head, all right, and a central head that you can relate to. Now, the Kohen is, Hagadol, the Kohen Gadol is the one that actually represents the people to the creator. He don't represent the creator to the people. The Pope does that, and so the Pope represents God on earth. Our Kohen represent we and the best we can be before God. So that's the difference in it. So you're gonna have that. The problem is that you want a king like all the other nations. And are we like all the other nations? Are we was designated to be like all the other nations? The problem is not having a king. The problem is having a king just like somebody else that God didn't send for. And it goes on to tell you, give some criteria. And it says, thou shalt not anywise set him king over thee, whom thy God, the Lord thy God shall choose. That means, all right, you might want one, but the Creator said, I'm gonna be the one to choose him. From one from among thy brethren shalt thou set, a king over thee. Thou mayest not put a foreigner over thee, who is not thy brother. Only he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses, for as much as the Lord has said unto you, you shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon his throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in the book, out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart not be lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandments to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. All right, so that's all I'm going to speak on about those two authority figures. The king job don't seem that glamorous. The king job, we had some prohibitions in there. The king was looked upon to be one of the people. We want one of our people up there, but the Creator said, I got to sign off on that. And you notice if you have a wicked king, it affects the people. And yet the Creator says that the king doing these things, following these rules, will prolong his life. So his life is constantly under threat. He got to read every day in the book of the law. Most of us might not even say prayers every day at the same time, or 5 days of the week at the same time, or 3 days a week at the same time. So imagine the king got to read the book of the law every single day. He got to stay familiar with it. And he got to get a copy from the priests, the Levites, But yet he becomes the judge authority in a civil matter as well. All right, but yet, you know, and the wives thing, I say, okay, what king didn't have more than one wife in Israel? You know, most of them violated that rule. But the rule was, like Solomon especially, with 700 wives, 300 concubines. You know, the rule was, the caution was, rather, I should say, the caution was that lest they turn your heart away. You know, well, that happened with King Solomon. His heart was turned. You know, and then that caused a problem. But in any event, it wasn't. It was not so much against a king. It's the type of king we're talking about. So I'm just going to leave that for a moment. And this last part I want to bring up near the end about warfare. All right, and then I'm going to the 20th chapter of Deuteronomy. And it says, when I go forth to battle against our enemies and see its horses and chariots and a people more than thou shalt not be afraid of them, for the Lord thy God is with thee, who brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. All right. And then it says, so this is what goes on. All right. And if we could go into war, because we're getting ready to enter the land and people's not going to hand this to us. And it says, and it shall be when you draw nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak to the people, and shall say unto them, hear, O Israel, ye draw nigh this day unto the battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint, fear not, nor be alarmed, neither be affrighted at them. For the Lord your God is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. Saying you ain't gonna win otherwise. So now just think about that. If the Creator said, I'm going to fight for you to save you, that tell me, you say, I'm going out here to fight. You want me to go to the war. And then you're going to tell me that the only way I'm going to win is that you helping me. Not that I have a problem with the help, but you say, but suppose, you blink. Suppose you turn around for a hot moment. What's my situation? You said to save me. Anytime you talk about to save me, that means I'm in jeopardy. So that's just one thing to just consider and talk about, at that. Then it says, and the officer shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is he that built a new house and have not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. And what man is there that have planted a vineyard and have not used the fruit thereof? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle. And another man use the fruit thereof. And what man is there that have betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle. And another man take her. And the officer shall speak further. All right. You notice it said, and the officer shall even go further. All right. And then that means this is going to be the final edition. And speak further unto the people and say, what man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart melt as his heart. And it shall be when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that the captains of the host shall be appointed at the heads of the people. All right. Now, this last verse is, most people tend to gloss over it, but I want to bring out this last verse, all right, in the 9th verse. And it shall be when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that the captains of the host shall be appointed at the head of the people. A lot of things going on here, and I'm going to stop at this before we go to the Haftarah. One, I should start at the, I should start from the beginning. The priest speaking, that's it. Then it says the officer speaking to the people while you're at the battlefield. Now, what's interesting is that we're getting ready to go to war. We had earlier in certain, a few sidrotes back, when Gad, Reuben, wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan. And Moses was upset and said, how you going to go stay here and the other brothers got to go on the other side of the Jordan? So they got upset. So why this exemption now? And this was set in the 40th year. And when they wanted their land that they got from Sihon and Og was also in the 40th year. So where was this exemption now being brought? Why, you know, when they say we want this land over here, we don't want to cross the Jordan. And Moses thought, hey, the other brothers got to fight for their property. You know, yours already secure. So that's one thing that, you know, consider and talk about. And then another thing to consider and talk about in reference to this area is that when we look at the exemptions, they give you 3 exemptions before they go to this 4th one. A house, a new house. You know, suppose you had a house already. Now you got you a new house. So that should exempt you because you got a new one now. All right. You got a wife. All right. Is this your 3rd wife that she's new? This your 3rd new wife? Your 2nd new wife? Or your wife had died and then now you got you a new wife? How many times this exemption going to come up? You know, you're constantly buying houses, or you're constantly building houses, or you're constantly building, getting a wife, or the vineyard. What vineyard going to flower and bear fruit overnight except in the book of Jonah? So now you're going to be a while. You know, the conquest, we know from history that those 2.5, the Gad and then Reuben, stayed over 14 years before they went back. And then the final thing is about fear. And he's the only one affecting people, you know, and telling them to go back. And so that means right then that Moses said, you got to go ahead and go forward. But later on, then this is brought out about certain people who don't need in the battlefield if you're not 100% committed. So it's only wisdom in that sense. But the guy that's afraid, it takes him a lot of strength, a lot of courage to say, I'm scared. And the thing is that they don't use the word like afraid. They use the word like I'm standing in awe. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you stand in awe. So what is he afraid of? I mentioned earlier, the priest said that God will save you. How much sins I committed in the background that nobody know about? Now I'm out on the battlefield and I say, well, I know I didn't straighten out this mess with God yet. And I'm out here, you know, I mean, wielding sword and axe and spear and javelin, you know, carrying knives. So that makes, that's something to consider and think about more. And the final thing I'd like to say in this point before I go to the Haftarah is the 9th verse. If the officers is talking about that and it's right after fear, why now you got to appoint officers? Weren't they officers in the beginning? I mean, some of the officers said, I think I better go home. You know, I don't think this is for me. So the guys that was officers up front, it ain't just a local foot soldier. Some of the heavyweights said, look here. Big Brother John said, look here. Now, I mean, this midget man tripped me up before I hurt my ankle, man. I think I better go out. You know, I was practicing a new move and he hurt my ankle, man. So I just came on out here, you know, to show face. But I think I better leave. And Big Bear John's the captain. So, well, somebody can fill in my spot. The captains is only set up after all the exemptions is handed out. So it wasn't a such thing as a draft where you automatically had to do something. You know what I mean? Because first of all, if you had a draft, as most drafts happen when we have places with drafts, you have people defect to the other side, especially to capture or compromise. So I employ everybody to bring these different aspects to the teachers and finish the whole thing. We're going to go in the book of Isaiah, the 51st chapter, the 12th verse. I'm going to go through this here somewhat quickly, but I just want to highlight certain points. I was going through this particular portion, being we in this particular season. So if you got 12th verse, Chief, at the first 51st, you could go on. talk about that.
Isaiah chapter 51, verse 12. Hallelujah. It reads, I, even I am he that comforteth you. Who art thou that thou art afraid of man that shall die, and of the Son of Man that shall be made as grass? And hast forgotten Jehovah thy Maker, that stretched forth the heavens, and laid the foundations of the earth, and farest continually all the day because of the fury of the oppressor, as he maketh ready to destroy. And where is the fury of the oppressor?
Okay, right then and there. The Creator letting you know, once again, and it's during the season, this is the fourth Haftarah of comfort. We got 3 more before we get into the time of Yom Teruah. And one of the things is that, you know, the Creator letting us know that only He could comfort us. That means that your spouse, your children, a fortress, your security that you have, none of that could give you real comfort like the Creator. The Creator saying, look at it. And this is the people that's already been broken down, you know. And then say, you're afraid of man. And then we just got through talking about battles and judges. And then one of the saddest thing about this, when we were just talking about judges and Shoftim, you know, and I say, you know, Shoftim, and then we got the book of Judges. The book of Ruth is one of the saddest books of an opening, because it says, in the days when the judges judge, and yet you got a famine. So when your judges got to be judged, and we were talking earlier about bribes and stuff like that, that means right in there that the society had took a nosedive. The Creator letting us know now, after you went through all this here beatdown and stuff like that, it says, why are you afraid? I'm the one going to comfort you. You're afraid of another man, you know, and then I'm letting you know, you think I've forgotten you. And so this is one of the comforts, you know, and it's talking about, you know, I'm your maker. And then he's saying some of the things like, if I stretch out the heavens, he give you a resume like in the beginning of creation. So he gave me a resume and said, if I do all this here stuff, how could I overlook you? How could I miss you when I stretched out the heavens like a curtain? So how could I miss you? I know where you at. I know your condition. I see you. And it's talking to the nation of Israel. All right, 14th verse. 14.
Verse 14 reads, he that is bent down shall speedily be loosed, and he shall not go down dying into the pit, neither shall his bread fail. For I am Yehudah thy God, who stirred up the sea, that the waves thereof roar. Yehovah of hosts is his name.
Right there, right? He identified himself, first of all, and said, look here, you know, loosen up your bounds. You know, I mean, loosen, why you all tied up? Why you all bunched up? Why you uptight? As we say today, you so uptight. You know, the Creator trying to talk with us like saying, you know, reason to be uptight. I'm here. You know, I remember when we was coming up, in like every neighborhood, you had these little guys from different blocks that were, if you go to the store, you buy yourself, they might take your money, they might beat you up, all that kind of stuff over nothing, you know, just territorial, you know, and there's nothing to gain on either side, and you would probably do the same thing with them. But if you had your parent walking with you, they give you a pass, and when they ain't looking at it, they do one of these things like this here, or like they're pointing like they're gonna get you later. But they give you a pass back then when I was coming up. I don't know about these days in time, because they beat old ladies up and everything like that, knock guys out and, you know, old men out. But I'm saying that when I came up, you could pass through a neighborhood that was bad with gang bangers and everything like that there. If you had your parent with you, that gave you a passport to that store for a moment. Now, don't be on those soldiers run by yourself now in the neighborhood. But you had the passport. So the Creator letting you know that I'm with you. I got you. But let's read a little bit further when we get down to the 16.
Verse 16 reads, and I have put my words in thy mouth, and I have covered thee in the shadow of my hand, that I may plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth, and say unto Zion, thou art my people. Awake, awake.
That's like an adoption. And he created, and know that he adopted us. That's what it was. We are adopted people of the Most High God. 17. Awake, awake.
Verse 17. Awake, awake. Stand up, O Jerusalem. Stand as drunk at the hand of Yehovah the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the beaker, even the cup of staggering, and drained it. There is none to guide her among all the sons whom she hath brought forth. Neither is there any that taketh her by the hand, or of all the sons that she hath brought up. These two things are befallen thee. Who shall bemoan thee? Desolation and destruction and the famine and the sword. How shall I comfort thee? Thy sons have fainted. They lie at the head of all the streets, as an antelope in a net. Are full of the fury of Yehovah, the rebuke of thy God. Therefore hear now this, thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. Thus saith Adonai Yehovah, and thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thy hand the cup of staggering, the beaker, even the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again. And I'll put it into the hand of them that afflicted thee, that have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy back as the ground and as the street to them that go over.
All right, there. I'll stop before we go to 50 seconds. All right. One, you talk about the desolation of Jerusalem and say, awake, awake. That's like one of those people that go to do a traditional opening of prayer, Lekar Dodi, on a Friday night. That's one of the lines that was started by a guy. Let me see. I think I wrote his name down. Solomon Halevi Akabet during the 1540 around that time, and he's taking it from this here particular portion here as a new liturgy or prayer that's put into the regular prayer books, and that's when he used to open up the Kabbalah Shabbat, bringing in the bride of the Shabbat. And we say that in the Lekar Dodi song. But one of the things is that when we look at it, that it's like you got somebody that you welcome them in, and it created, saying Jerusalem created talking to this place, Jerusalem, where his name is placed to dwell. And then it's talking about the punishment that's going to be afflicted upon the oppressors, and he talking about, now therefore hear this, thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. Thus of the Lord, and that, the Lord and thy God that pleaded the cause of his people. All right. So now we was act like we was drunk when we was violating. Now the oppressors think they all this here, they bad, they tough. A lot of times in ancient times, people, when they beat you, they don't say we just beat you. They say our God whipped your God. So hence, the creator, and we got so beaten down sometimes that people say lay down so I can, so I can walk on top of you. I remember a certain thing, basically if you look at in reference to the sidewalk and, and doing segregated South in different places when it was segregated on slave day, black people walking on the sidewalk, narrow. And some places just had a wooden plank of a sidewalk and another guy walking on it, and there'd be a puddle, mud, whatever the case is. If you was, a person of color, you had to step off that plank or off that side and let the other person pass by. So that's how beaten we were. And that's what the creator describing, that we even went lower than that. They said, lay down and let me walk on your back. That's something. Those that might have seen 300, you see the guy that's supposed to be playing Xerxes walking down on the people and stuff like that. Well, people actually did stuff like that, especially to the people they conquered. All right, let's go again. 52nd chapter.
Chapter 52 reads, verse 1. Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion. Put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake thyself from the dust, arise and sit down, O Jerusalem. Lose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus saith Yehovah, you were sold for naught, ye shall be redeemed without money.
Hold right there. In other words, the Creator don't owe anybody for our return, but they owe us for the work we put in. That sounds very familiar. You know what I mean? The Creator didn't sell us, but we was used. We was productive for other people, but we wasn't productive for ourselves. And that's the difference. So the Creator, saying you weren't sold, you weren't sold for money because things were tight. All right. So, but nevertheless, it's talking about what He's gonna do for us. Fourth verse, what it says here in the fourth verse.
Verse 4 reads, for thus saith Adonai Yehovah, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Now therefore, what do I hear? Saith Yehovah, seeing that my people is taken away for naught. They that rule over them do how, saith Yehovah, and my name continually all the day is blasphemed. Therefore,
before we get to the sixth verse, I just want to bring out why it say, went down to Egypt, and the Assyrians oppressed them without a cause. All right, the Egyptians had reason, a little bit of reason to do what they did, but we didn't borrow or get anything from the Assyrians. So now that's what it's saying. You come up into here, beat us down, but we didn't owe you anything. So why you come and attack us? Well, we know it's because of our sins, but I'm not saying, but this is one of the reasons that the Creator has given us and saying, and trying to give us some hope, saying, look here, Egypt, I even did something to them because how they treated you at the end, and they did start off doing you some good. You was a stranger in their land, but you're not a stranger in Assyria. So why would they come in there and just strip you down bare? So now as we go to the sixth verse, we got seven more verses here.
Verse 6 reads, therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know in that day that I, even He that spoke, behold, here I am. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger of good tidings, that announce of peace and the harbinger of good tidings, that announce of salvation, that save unto Zion, thy God reigneth.
Hold right there. You want to hear that? We would like to hear that today. When everything is good. Said, after you come through a bad spill in your life, been beat down, dragged down, got stomped on so low that you got to look up to bend down. That's the way we work. But here it is that, the Creator saying, you got some good tidings coming, the message coming. That Lord, that God reigneth. So when you say that, did our God ever refuse to reign? But He's not recognized as reigning. That's why we always say that thing that, in that day His name will be one, all right. But go ahead, let's pick it up from exactly. There, see, that's in every prayer book. Good. All right, pick it up from the 8.
Verse 8. Hark thou watchman, they lift up the voice, together do they sing, for they shall see eye to eye Yehovah returning to Zion.
Keep going.
Break forth into joy, sing together, ye waste places of Jerusalem. For Yehovah hath comforted His people, He hath redeemed Jerusalem. Yehovah hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God.
Hold right. Now, He brought us out of Egypt with outstretched arm, So He said, look here, when a guy make bare their arms, it's like rolling up your sleeve. Can you imagine? When you get ready to do some real serious work, even if you're going to fight, a lot of times guys, when you see a guy start doing like this here with their sleeves, pulling up like that, doing that kind of stuff, he said, well, you're going to be in for a good one. You know what I mean? It's going to be a rough time. That means he getting into his comfort zone, and the comfort zone is not so much rolling the sleeve back. His comfort zone is like, I'm ready to battle. This is what I live for. And that's one of the things that the Creator's coming out and trying to encourage us. All right, pick it up again and just finish it out.
And it reads, verse 11, depart ye, go ye out from thence. Touch no unclean thing. Go ye out of the midst of her. Be ye clean, ye that bear the vessels of Yahuwah. For ye shall not go out in haste, neither shall ye go by flight. For Yahuwah will go before you, and the God of Yisrael will be your reward. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right, this last verse is one of the reasons why Ezra and them, and we read later on, left without an escort from Babylon. Now, the very jewels and vessels and money and wealth that they left to go to Babylon with, we read in the Apocrypha that he prayed, but he didn't want the escort back because it would look like it was not God helping him to come back. But so he prayed because everybody wasn't really that pious. And even in that time, he know that you had a lot of corruption going on amongst the Israelites. A lot of people became Babylonians over a period of time. But the thing was that the Creator said, we're going to come back royal like that in that area, wealthy. So the exodus from Babylon was greater than the exodus from Egypt. And in the final days, the exodus from the four corners of the earth are going to be greater than both of those put together. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said. And like I said, any mistakes from my own, and leave a comment if there's any questions that I might have slurred over or something of that nature. And I say, Shalom Aleichem, early Shabbat Shalom. All right. Yeah. Shalom.